Hello, Scott.
Hello, Perry.
Welcome to Awaken Hidden Truth.
We was having a little fun, weren't we, before we started this show?
Okay. So, can I start from the question?
Sure, why not?
This question from Marilyn Kalimans. She said, love our last show, okay? At each journey we make progress, which is awesome. Here's my question. Each journey we go on, we become smarter, IQ goes up, and we remember more about how we got there. The places we go are all benevolent, and we meet master teachers, etc. Each time I return, I feel my vibration is higher. Law of resonance. Does that make sense to you?
Of course. That's what I said would happen. If people co-create going on these journeys, it's going to affect them in most unexpected, most unexpected but beneficial ways. So yeah, she's already answering her own question. She said, this is happening, and it's, does your IQ go up? I always feel better, and this and that. She's getting it.
But she's getting quite fast. Some people, they've been trying. So
that's everybody's different, and it depends on their motivation, how motivated they are to know truth, or if they really just don't kind of care yet about knowing anything other than just living and eating and going to the bathroom and dying. Because a lot of people really don't go outside that box yet. They need to and they want to, but they're terrified to do it. And their fear is artificial. They don't know it's artificial. They grow up on a planet where they're taught that fear is real. It isn't. The negative emotion artificially created and implanted in and around the Atma to make people, to control beings, really. Put them on a planet, make them reincarnate there, dumb them down. Then you can use them to do whatever you need to get done. Short lives until they work themselves to death and retire or whatever, and then off they go, and they don't know any more than when they were born. Maybe they know how to make an airplane because they went to college and they went to work for Rockwell or Skunk Works or these secret military industrial complex places. But they still live and they die as ignorant about what's beyond this earth and out there, for the most part, when they were born. And people in classified areas are only told as much as they need to do to their part, their little part. And all the other people that are doing little parts of a classified thing, they don't even know they're building an anti-gravity spaceship, because only the people that fly it and the generals ever find out what all that works for. So a person working in the defense industry, unless they're very high up, usually doesn't know what it is they're working on or what it's for. A few people do. Most people do not. Which truly doesn't help them know any more than they're told. And the people on Earth that aren't classified know far less, because they're not told anything. So you have to, if you're a researcher of deliberately hidden truth, like I am, it means that I don't research facts and data or try to find proof. I go into direct experience and discover what the truth is that's been hidden for myself. I don't need to ask somebody in the classified arena or a government official or a general what's classified, because I don't care what they've classified. I know a lot more than they do about what's out there in the universe, and they can't classify that from me. If I attempted to bring to this world openly all I know about what's developed out there and how it works, it really wouldn't benefit the people of Earth, because they couldn't comprehend it and they'd be afraid of it, just because they're afraid of anything they don't know. Subconsciously misdirected. They have a right to know hidden truth. They have the capability to know it, but not as long as they believe and support things like fear and doubt, speculation and theory. They'll never know anything, for sure. Because those are negative emotions, and they misdirect the imagination in negative ways about the future, mainly. Will there be a nuclear war? Well, it's theoretical. We might have one. Will the Earth ever be hit by a big meteor and everybody's killed? Well, it's theoretical. You teach people that, and they live their whole lives in fear of unknown things. They never really know. So my work is more about helping people discover, while they're living this screwy life on this backward planet, which is backward only temporarily, how to go about recovering who they are and what they know in a safe way, in a protected way, that no power, no government, no misdirected people, no military industrial complex, no weaponry or anything can prevent. There's actually a way to do that. It does not pose a threat to the people in power. It helps them get out of needing to have power over the people. It works differently than people think it does. So that's important. And this woman who answered this, basically answered her question as she's asking it of me. Is this good that I get a higher IQ? And this and that and the other thing. Is she on the right track? Well, of course she is. But only she can know that for herself. Even if I tell her she's on the right track, it's still me telling her instead of her knowing it. That means she will remain in doubt about it until she awakens the ability to know things directly for herself, without thought, without emotion, without trying to think bits of data together to come up with an answer. That won't work. The Atma is the knower, not the brain and the body that a person grows up running for a few years on this planet. The body and the brain particularly only knows what it grew up learning. The brain in a person on Earth doesn't know anything about its out-of-body experiences unless it's trained to be able to bring memories of it back to this consciousness. It doesn't know about other worlds or higher dimensions. It doesn't have the ability to comprehend the multidimensional universe or anti-gravity or anything else. It's the Atma, the spherical being that runs a body and a brain that knows this stuff, the real person, what people on Earth call soul. And as we've mentioned on every show, and probably will into the future, a soul or Atma has a structure. It's made of energy. It's not nuclear. It's not atomic in nature. A hydrogen bomb cannot harm it because it's not made in space and time and is not made of matter. You can't split the atom of an Atma, so to speak. And it looks like that thing you've got in the shelf back there. You know, spherical, multidimensional, layers, white core. You know, people might as well get used to the fact that they are not made or created in the image of this, the physical body. That thing's temporary and it's gone. What are you going to take the decaying worm-eaten molecules in a grave with you out into the other worlds after you leave this life? No. So people on Earth have concepts and beliefs about that they're a soul or that there's some kind of a being that's eternal, but they don't have the real experience of it. So all they've got is faith or belief. Theory is the same thing as faith. Identical. You believe something, it's theoretical because you believe it, but you can't prove it. So faith and theory are identical. Scientists use theory, people in religions use faith, they're the same thing. It lacks direct experience. I think all religions and all faith and even theories can be good if they lead to direct experience for the person who's involved in whatever that theory or faith is. If anybody in any particular system of belief on this planet, if they remain their whole life just believing something, they'll never really have the knowing confidence about it when they die. No matter how strong their faith is, they really won't know until they die, and then their faith is expecting to take them and give them the answers later. Where's the guarantee in that? There's no guarantee they're going to have some kind of freedom when they leave this life, because no one's ever come back to Earth to verify that they got free when they died in faith. They're just gone. And if they came back here, they wouldn't remember it. And people wouldn't recognize each other. So the real being this thing that cannot be destroyed, that has existed and came into existence before space and time and the lower dimensions were ever created, is who we really are. It's not theory. It's not speculation. It's not belief. It's not debate. It's not fear or any other negative emotion. Because all those things are negative in that they leave the person in doubt about whether it's really real or not. If all you have access to is what someone outside of you tells you is true, and you have to believe this, then that's all you have. Someone who's really courageous and really wants to know what they are that isn't physical and how to move it around the multidimensional creation will find people, one way or another, even on this planet, that will cross paths with such people who can help them connect with other beings from other worlds and other realities to help them get free of the trap they're in on this planet. The trap is simply this. You get born here, you don't remember what you knew or where you were before you were born. Most people. Some people remember a few past lives, or they start to get into it over most of their lives, and they have a few psychic experiences and some things like that, but that doesn't take them far enough into knowing. A person leaves this life, they should get out of the body consciously, as they've done their whole life, and go to where they've been preparing to go to in full awareness, with no fear of death. Because it's just the body that's passing, not the being that runs it. People got it all backwards on Earth, and it was done to them deliberately. I can't blame people on Earth for how misdirected they are in their thinking. It's been done to them since birth. Governments and religions in cahoots with each other have been doing it for thousands and thousands of years on this planet to keep the masses under their control. That's coming to an end. It is because I'm on this radio show on YouTube putting this out in the world. It doesn't threaten anybody, but it does offer them the clarity to know that there is another way for them to go to really recover who they are and what they knew before they were born here, with little or no memory intact. How can a person have free will when they think they do on Earth if they can't remember what they are that isn't this that passes away in a short time? And if they can't remember anything they knew in their long journey through the multidimensional universe to get here, all the way down here on Earth in this material plane? If you can't remember any of that, how can you have free will? How can you make decisions about what to do constructively in the future if you can't remember everything you've learned from the past long before being born in this life? The Atma is not matter. It lives outside of and operates in an energy field that is not time and space, even while it's running a body in time and space. I hope that helps. When people hear what I do, if they're listening inwardly, if they're paying attention to their own courage to leap forward, then they'll know that what I'm sharing with them is true. And they begin to go, wait a minute, that sounds really familiar to me. How did I forget that? Or how did I forget this? And things begin to wake up in them. That means that the Atma, which is not material, is the knower on how to see into the multidimensional creation, how to see what it's like to be on another planet in another reality, right when they put their body in the trance state called sleep, and they do it every night. Like experts. The most vulgar person on this world who can put themselves to sleep at night gets out of their body, and they take their vulgar consciousness with them, negative or evil or whatever it is, and they bring it back in the morning when they wake that body up. It's just that they don't and are not trained, don't have access to and are not trained growing up here with any information or any training, any practice of utilization of the higher faculties in order to be comfortable and confident with leaving their body and knowing what they're doing and bringing it back here. No one's trained to do that growing up to an adult on this planet. So why should they be comfortable or familiar with it like it's easy? They think it's difficult, impossible. And yet people do it all the time without realizing they're doing it. They daydream. They imagine being somewhere else other than the boring job they've got, or they want to be somewhere else, and they just imagine it. And the physical eyes and ears are seeing and hearing what's around them, but their imagination is seeing what they're imagining somewhere else. The brain can't do that. The physical eyes can't see that. These physical eyes cannot see the planet Nerexulum 400, 500 light years from here in our galaxy, because its physical eyes are limited to a short, small spectrum of light frequency. It doesn't even go into infrared and ultraviolet and gamma and X-rays and all that stuff. And levels of energy that aren't even named on this planet yet. The Atma can. The human body and human brain cannot, unless it's taken on a ship within the physical universe, at least through 144 parallel dimensions. Physical craft and physical bodies can move in those, if you have the technology. To go even into the next level, or what some people call a next heaven, like the astral plane, you can't take physical craft there. The only race I ever knew that was capable of doing it were the Say race, and they were the only ones that did it over 1 billion years ago. I don't know of another race that can do it. And they're not talking about how they did that, because corrupt people would misuse such things. So you have to go out of your body as an Atma and go into the astral plane, where you have a life you're living there. Most people don't even know they're running a body there. All emotion comes from there. This is just stuff that people have been manipulated without their consent to forget, because they're terrified to remember. Whatever was done to a person to put them on this earth in a body with no memory was not fun. And whatever was done to them is reinforced from some tyrant misusing science, that if you ever remember what we did to you, or remember who you are, we'll do this to you again. That's not true, because they're not allowed. They've been stopped. They can't do that to anybody anymore. The people on earth have had this done to them. And so even though there's no tyrants around, even in the hidden government, to pervert people here, the programs that are subconsciously implanted in them are still running people. They're being run by negative programs on a subconscious level, which means they're not aware of what's going on in that subconscious arena. And that's not normal, because the being can't have free will and run their lives if somebody's running programs subconsciously and they don't know what they are. Common sense, right? Makes sense. One of the things that's underway now in galactic history, let's say in current times, becoming galactic history every day, is the movement of an energy field through the primordial first field of energy or sound that created everything we have here. Galaxies and planets, other dimensions, doorways between dimensions. The beings who guard those doorways between dimensions because they exist. People that run advanced spacecraft and can travel among the stars and galaxies are out there in great number. Far more advanced, and I'm talking about human species as well, than we are on Earth. You're not going to take your little rocket ships to the moon and then go to Mars and think you're going to go play out in the stars amongst the other races, carrying fear and negativity and destructive weapons and negative militaristic thoughts, that you're going to just control what you find out there for the good of all mankind on Earth. Never, ever is that going to happen. Never. Because space out there is already occupied by far more advanced races, predominantly. We're going to have to join them, not the other way around. I make this very clear because it's the kind of thing that people have to become aware of in full disclosure of the extraterrestrial issue. There isn't any other way. Right now, people are so deliberately made to be ignorant of what truth really is on this planet. They look up from what they get on the news, that's controlled, what governments decide to allow them to hear, or religions, and they look up and they go, I wonder, gee golly, if there's life on other planets. You can't get any further down the scale of suppression as a being than that. So when you can't remember who you are and you look up and see the stars and go, I wonder if there's life out there. When they should know it without even thinking twice about it. If they're like that, then they are vulnerable to be controlled by outside beings and forces who tell them what they want them to hear and manipulate them to stay in doubt. So they are never certain about anything. Person can be taken on a spaceship, meet some nice humans, have lunch, come back, be brought back, and in 3 days they will think, maybe that was a dream and it never really happened. Because of the subconscious influences over them, they don't even know they have. Beings from other worlds who are very kind and involved in this underway transformation is not just about planet Earth. It's about life and worlds and other dimensional realities beyond Earth as well. They know how stuck people on Earth are, how misdirected, how they're not trained in anything that matters or is useful from birth about anything except work, make money, buy things, have houses, and die. That's not why we're alive as beings. It's got nothing to do with it at all. We, as individual beings, including all the beings on Earth, I don't care if they're classified or royal families or what they are, they're destined and designed. I don't want to say designed because that sounds like some being controls them that made them and brought them into creation, some super god. That's really not how it happened. That spherical energy sphere that we people on Earth call soul, they don't even understand what it's shaped like or what it really looks like. They think they got some vague idea that it looks kind of like a luminous body that looks like this. The astral body might, is made of physical matter on the astral plane. It's a higher frequency. And the physical and astral bodies do not mix. They remain running on the various planes they're on. The Atma can move between them, yes. You can't bring the astral body here under any normal circumstances. You can't take the physical body into the astral plane under any normal circumstances. And people need to understand this. People on Earth probably, for the most part, most people do not understand that emotion, when they feel something, good or bad, that it doesn't even come from the human body or the brain they grew up with. It comes from a body they're running on another dimension that's living a life that lives much longer than the physical body and isn't necessarily more free than they are, which means their so-called higher selves aren't really helping them the way they think they are. The Atma cannot be destroyed by any weapon or technology or by negative beings in or out of bodies or by anybody. The source itself, the prime creator, the supreme being, doesn't but never has destroyed a single Atma. It'd be like destroying part of itself. The individual Atma is like that picture back there that was designed by me and an artist I hired I trust. Very carefully constructed so people can see visually on this earth the technology available today, what this looks like. And then if they're wise, they're going to eventually work themselves up to having the direct experience of seeing it and understanding that's what they really are, recovering it, waking it up. The faculties that make up that being, all the different levels and colors, are each one, little teardrops in all of them, are little storage areas. They're higher faculties. Like a higher faculty of being telepathic, to talk with beings out of bodies across space and time, on other worlds and higher realities, without the limits of space and time. Because you can do that without, there's no limit of speed of light on it or anything like that. Telepathy is not a function of physical matter. Telepathy is not a function of or in physical matter. Telepathy is not part of molecules and atoms. It is something that's comprised of an energy at the core of each being and in an energy field that supports all life in all the dimensional realities that is not made of physical matter, is not nuclear or atomic in nature. It is energy, but not as people on Earth understand it or remember it, at least not yet. Telepathy between beings in the universe cannot be manipulated or controlled by negative beings or negative technology, misuse of science. Quite impossible. You know, you can have bodies destroyed, anybody can do that, blow up a planet. But the beings that run those bodies have never been destroyed in the history of creation. They've been compelled to reincarnate over and over again, often thousands, if not millions of lives, with little to no memory of what happened in the past life. That's what people call karma and reincarnation. Meaning you reincarnate, somebody convinces you to come back here, get in a baby body, and for your own good, you won't remember anything. Then you're expected to get this perfecting yourself right in the next life with no wisdom and no memory from all your other journeys. You can't get it right that way. And there are tyrant beings in the universe who know that. And they operate on dimensions above the physical universe, and they misdirect people. Beings that people are worshiping as God are not. They're tyrants. It's clear they are because they continue to keep this world like it is and keep people ignorant. You know, you're going to get perfect someday, incarnate another billion lives and maybe you'll get there kind of thing, is a crock of nonsense. There's no way to perfect yourself that way. Only tyrants want people believing that. So they won't get off their ass and actually exercise their higher faculties to get free of this stuff. That's a problem for people on Earth. And beings from other worlds I work with know this. I'm not going to come in here and dump enlightenment on everybody for free with no effort or involvement on the part of the people who live here. That won't work. People getting freedom that way would abuse it and misuse it from subconscious drives and get right back in the same trap without even being able to stop themselves, because they're driven subconsciously out of terror and fear, artificially created emotions. When the Atma, a being on Earth, first hears this and begins to understand it, something begins to wake up in them that's been long suppressed, long before this one lifetime. Once that process starts, particularly with the primordial sound they begin to connect to in the hue, first half of the word human, it opens a doorway through the pineal gland in the center of the brain, and things starts to change. Subtle at first, but then it grows on a person. And they begin to get some confidence about what they're seeing and doing when they're out of their body. We go on these sessions, even on radio shows, for the benefit of all people on Earth. I don't do it for a select group of elitist New Age people. I do it for them, but it's also for classified people, government people, anybody that does not remember who and what they are. Because if they did remember who and what they are and what their real purpose is for being alive as an entity, as a being, as an Atma, they would know that their purpose is to co-create only uplifting, benevolent things, kind things that will be good for all life, not just life on Earth, life in the entire grand multidimensional creation. Each Atma running a body on this Earth has this capability, whether they know it now or doubt it or are terrified of it. Sooner or later, every single being is going to have to confront this, deal with it, master it, and come forward. This is inevitable at this point. So when this kind of thing crosses a person's path, first thing I want to share with them is that they've had the courage, not me, to somehow co-create crossing paths with me and beings I know, against all odds, being completely suppressed and unconscious on a planet. Somehow, the Atma overrode all those suppressive programs enough to cross paths with a way to get out of this mess. And that is to be acknowledged and respected in people who somehow find this out. When the world is set up for you to never find it, or never understand it if you do, or be afraid of it. There are people on earth telling people if they get out of their bodies, the devil will look at them. I point out to them, and I do on these shows, that the devil's already got them. That's why they're on earth with no memory. They don't have to wait till they get out of their body to be got. They don't remember anything now. You can't get any lower than that. So the only way for people on earth right now, whether they know it or not, is up. They've been suppressed as far as you can go and still be alive, even running a body. So the only way left for them is to get out of this, to go the other way. The earth has been brought down to a place so far suppressed it can't get any lower. People don't know anything on this life, grow up and live and die with very little awareness of what's beyond this earth. They're waiting for science, the science that a classified system decides to tell them. They're waiting for that, for them to tell them about the advanced races that don't use rocket fuel and rocket-powered boosters to go anywhere, that they gave it up millions, if not hundreds of millions of years ago, because it's polluting and it's nonsense and you can't get across the stars that way anyway. 2.5 years to Mars and back in a rocket-powered craft? How absurd is that? Just a little planet in our own solar system? You can take 5 years for them to go round trip? That's what they're feeding the public. It's not true. And even they know it. They have other ways to get around that are much faster than that, but it's classified. And sooner or later, and I would say sooner, they're going to have to disclose this fully to the people in this world because they're being compelled to now. For their own good, really. I would have to say right now, confidently, that the majority of people in the classified community on this planet that have been hoarding this extraterrestrial awareness since the end of World War II do not want to do it anymore. It causes ill health. It ages them. It's deceptive, dishonest, and negative, and that causes disease in people. And even if they're diseased and dishonest, they're just going to pass that on to their private little group they pass on their classified thing to, and it's going to negatively affect them too. I don't think anybody in their right mind wants to continue to do that for a whole lot longer period of time. That's already been done because it's not healthy for this planet. It's not healthy for the people in power. It can't be. It's a contradiction in terms. Negative creates negative results. Dishonesty and deception creates chains of events that keep creating problems that people have to constantly try to cover up, and they can't cover them up fast enough because they're undermining their own attempt to move forward by keeping it. They think for the good of all life, the people on earth are too stupid and too dumb. But no, they don't get to know, but we do for their sake. That's nothing but an ego trip that they've gotten into. It's not good for them either. It isn't. It's very simple. When people become aware, as they're becoming aware on Earth today, in classified and non-classified arenas, they're all realizing something's very wrong and out of place on this planet. Everyone knows the governments aren't telling them the truth about a lot of stuff. That's a given. That's why they call it National Security Act, classified. We don't have to tell you. So what gives them the right as fellow human beings, no better or worse than any of the rest of us, to hoard that over the rest of us in some kind of made-up thing that it's good for everybody else and they're not ready for it? It's nonsense. They know it's nonsense. They're also getting a lot of help right now as we speak from beings from other worlds and master teachers from other planes, and they're being met out of their bodies at night. They can't avoid it. I don't care what position they're on in power on this planet. They're going to be met with beings that are going to show them in a kind way the truth, even about how it's harming them to keep this lid on this whole issue. And they're going to help them, show them a way to disclose this to the world's populace in a safe, non-destructive manner for their benefit too. I've always said this from day one, since I came forward with my mission to this planet and started disclosing it in little conferences and little radio shows. There are people who have met me in other conferences in the past that never really knew who I was at all. And I wasn't there to convince them of anything. I began a mission to establish a new energy field coming into this planet. That's already been done. It cannot be reversed by any power here. They know that too. There are forces in here and around our solar system they know are there that they cannot control, will not control, and never will control. And they're moving in one direction, and that's moving creation into a new direction. And that's working to move through the people of this earth, and at some point, the governments of this world will decide it's time, and they'll have enough confidence, enough encouragement from people who know what they're doing from out of town, who can work with them, far more advanced human beings, who don't ego trip on them. They're not going to be disrespectful, but they're going to know with no doubt whatsoever that their disclosure will be safe and constructive, and then they're going to do it because it's good for them too. It's just that simple. This world and its people have a lot of waking up to do. They have no idea just how suppressed they have been without their consent or awareness, or when it was done to them, or why. Part of enlightenment and waking up has to do with recovering the awareness of that, even if they were terrible events. Because once a terrible event that's blocking memory and higher faculties surfaces, it becomes nothing more than a memory. Once it's a memory, it can't affect you subconsciously anymore. Higher faculties turn on and more consciousness, your IQ goes up. Yes, it does. It means your ability to comprehend things not of this world goes up significantly. As a being comes back in the morning from their travels at night, when the body's in the trance state called sleep, they begin to bring back more and more of what they know as an Atma and download it into this brain and body that never grew up with any of that. And so they become wise and more intelligent and more expansive. When they get on the internet and look at all that's offered out there, they can see through people that are trying to do the right thing but are misdirected themselves and are putting out a bunch of fear of the future without realizing they're being destructive and not helpful. Or they'll look at other parts that are out there and see where there's truth being revealed, and they'll be able to see it without reacting negatively to it, or with jealousy, or with competition for followers and money. That's the biggest trap they could ever get into, any of them. Start throwing stones at each other, people that are trying to reveal truth here, and they're just trapping themselves under the thumb of someone else. So there's a reason why I don't get involved with any of those people or anything on that earth. It's not because I think I'm superior. It means I don't have time to get entangled with their good and bad future predictions and all this stuff. It's a waste of time. It's an utter and complete waste of time, because it doesn't enlighten anyone. It doesn't set anybody free. It just helps them fear the future. And their imagination goes into the negative, grounds them to the earth, and they can't get out. They can't use their higher faculties. Why? Because higher faculties of being that give you the real ability to know things do not work with any negative emotions at all, or negative imagination. And they never will. That's a fact. I just stated that for this show. It is a fact in eternity. You cannot use negative deceit and dishonesty to create new things. There's never been anybody that's ever created anything that way. People that created hydrogen and atomic bombs never earned it themselves. They did not come up with it because they were smart, brilliant German scientists. It was given to them illegally from off-planet. They didn't develop it after World War II out of the blue. There's a lot more to this whole thing than people have any idea, because all of this is extraterrestrial related, good or bad. Every last bit of it. The ability to run rockets to the moon that never existed before World War II didn't just come from German scientists playing with V-2 rockets. It came from little gray guys that had connected with some of those scientists illegally, and it was downloaded and given to them a lot of different help in a negative, destructive intent, breaking an off-world treaty. And that treaty's been policed. And those guys have been stopped. Hitler lost, and there's been shot down on this planet. About to do something really nasty, and especially after World War II. Ships that were recovered that crashed were shot down, but not by our military. That's something that they would have wanted to classify from common knowledge amongst people. It's just common sense. If you want to have people feel safe and rebuild a damaged world after World War II and have babies and feel confident your military is going to protect you, you don't want to tell them extraterrestrials, good and bad, are coming to this planet or have snuck in here, bad ones in particular. So you classify it, figure out a way to deal with it, try to reverse engineer things, give yourself the time to defend yourselves against these vastly technologically superior races. So that's what they did. And probably they, thought this was probably the best thing they could have done at the time. It was not the correct choice, but they were convinced of this because they were being subconsciously manipulated by the misuse of extraterrestrial science at the time to make decisions against their better judgment. It is inevitable at this point that this world is going to go through great changes in a non-destructive and transforming manner. That cannot be prevented. There are indications in experience and things that are being monitored in the solar system by a classified space program that are vastly superior to anything we have, and they're moving things into a certain direction for our own good. They're not going to control governments here and come down and rule the planet. No, they're going to get people on Earth awake enough to rule themselves in a benevolent, kind way. Deceit and dishonesty has got to go the way of the dodo, the dinosaur. There's no future in it. There will never be a future in it. It creates negative repercussions in space-time that come back negative. That's law. As long as they're perpetuating that and covering it up and spending all this money on it, they're just setting up scenarios in the future that will happen they don't expect, and they won't know how to deal with it. They react in fear. That's destructive, caused by their own negative output. And they get help from beings from other worlds and have since World War II. These people on this earth would have blown this place up in nuclear war. They tried to do it a number of times. Didn't work. So if you want to call that interfering in this planet, you can call it whatever you want. But it means that beings stopped us from annihilating ourselves because people were so misdirected here. They thought it was hip, slick, and cool to launch these nuclear bombs and fill the power, blowing everything up. It's just absurd. That's misdirected thinking. Any being on any world that deliberately sets off a hydrogen bomb with radioactive dust going around the world in their own atmosphere just to test it would be looked on by other beings who know better as an insane group of people living on a planet. I mean, out of their minds, nuts. Why would you deliberately radioactive your own planet just testing bombs? No one in their right consciousness would ever even think about doing such a thing. Vast organizations of world systems out there do not use them, don't create them, they're outlawed. They have much better ways of dealing with energy than that. And this earth and its people have the ability, under the right conditions, to be able to receive and be benefited by these advanced races and their technology. When we can be trusted to be mature enough to go out there and not shoot at the first thing you don't understand because you're terrified, you bring all your fear and negativity with you to the stars from Earth, No one's going to tolerate that. The advanced races out there aren't going to tolerate that. So this solar system and this Earth is quarantined by them. Whether we like it or not, tough. Because people on Earth are not sane enough to play among the stars. They just aren't. Everybody on Earth really knows it. They might have pride in their accomplishments and going to the moon, but the way people are in this world, they can't be allowed as a planetary culture with governments fighting each other, going out there and throwing all that nonsense out into space on races that, number one, will not tolerate it and don't deserve it. And we don't have the right as a collective mass of unconscious people on Earth to impose that on anyone else outside of this planet. We don't even really have the right to blow ourselves up, because that would affect life people on Earth are ignorant of in other parallel dimensions, other realities, where there's far more numbers of beings than what's on this planet. We don't have that right. The sooner people on Earth get that one thing in their head properly, this world will change. And everybody will be involved in that change. It's going to require the co-creative participation of other beings on this world, waking up and figuring this out, coming out of this dream, this hypnotic trance they're in, that they can't remember anything. People start remembering things here, it's going to be like a snowball. It'll sweep around the world. And it's moving this way. So with that said, unless you have any questions, Perry, I say this for the benefit of all life on Earth.
Yes, I have a quick.
It's not directed towards any special group. It isn't deprived of the Illuminati, whatever people think that is, or royal families, or military-industrial complex, or the mass of people on this planet, in every faith, in every walk of life. It is for everyone, without exception. Because the beings that are out in this universe are vast beyond measure. And they treat each other much, 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 much better than people on Earth treat each other. And they've been doing it for hundreds of millions, in some cases billions of years. Human as well. Human beings are very ancient. They didn't get developed out of some extinct Cro-Magnon Neanderthal man, like people tell people. It's just theory. There's no proof of it at all. None. The Big Bang Theory is just a theory as well. They can't verify it. You have to go into the universe as an Atma, out of your body, and go into galactic history and all the way up on the higher planes to see what really happened. Or you're never going to know it. There isn't any way to discover it and know it for certain just looking at the physical universe and deciding in the physical universe this Big Bang happened and it just came out of nothing. Something just blew up out of nothing and made all this. That's a pretty poor theory, if you think about it. You can't get to the bottom of it that way. It's nice to give you a feeling like, okay, we can put an answer on something. We'll just say there was a Big Bang and all the universes got created out of this explosion. They can't verify that. There's no way to trace it back hundreds of billions of years and see it for themselves. So it's theory. To really know the source of that, beings have you and me and the people listening to the show that run human bodies and don't remember they're really an Atma that isn't made in the image, this source. This Atma is made of an energy that is not nuclear. It is energy. It is indestructible in the sense of time and space, and all the lower dimensions cannot be destroyed or harmed in any way. But it can be made under certain circumstances to think of itself as being limited and have doubt and fear and take on all these self-limiting misuses of the imagination until they're so trapped they don't remember who they are in a body on Earth. The Atma, with all of its faculties and all of its memories of all its lives, since it came from the worlds beyond the void, before the lower dimensions of time and space were created. That's how old Atmas are. They haven't got a clue about this on Earth. Not a clue. and yet they have the ability to know it again. That's the beauty of it. Underneath it all, it's all intact there, just suppressed. Their understanding, their ability to look into the multidimensional universe and know things telepathically can be recovered. So let's go on a little journey. You have a question? I think you had a question.
Yes, Scott, people around me, they ask me the question, like, okay, they want to get out of this difficult world and planet. They practice heal too. But the thing is, in daily life, they have their own problems, you know, and they cannot use like right imagination when there's so many negative come to them. So how can they get out of this negative?
There's only one way, and there is no easy way. There's not going to be a savior come here and do it all for them while they sit on their butt. No. They'll be waiting for the next 10,000 years and it still won't happen. It's irresponsible. It's childish. Why? Because if they don't actually have a hand in remembering who they are that isn't this, it could be given to them and they would lose it and abuse it in a day because of the subconscious junk that's still in them they don't know they have, would misdirect all that. And they would create more repercussions in space-time karma. And their own misuse of imagination, being subconsciously compelled in negative ways, would trap them all over again. None of us want that for anybody. That means the person's participation in waking up and co-creating their own freedom from this trap with beings who can help them do it is required. That's why when I wrote when I wrote the Emerald Doorway book, this is a proof copy, that's why this is on the front. It's about a history. It's not even the most ancient history. It's just history 101, 100,000 years ago, before the last polar flip of this planet. And this is about beings of the time, both in and not in the Galactic Alliance, human and humanoid, and a Dren, who is a silica-based creature, extremely intelligent, loving and courageous, not even human, were running around the universe and in our solar system. And the poles flipped, and they were doing it cyclically, and everything on the surface was killed. Most of the sea life, it's a violent affair. And then, when it settles down, under treaty, beings from other worlds come here and strike little colonies and bring humans here, and mammalian and plant life, and restart it all over again. And it only lasts 100,000 years, or until recently, it was a cyclic thing. Earth has never been in the proper position before to maintain a stability as the poles so they don't flip completely over, for people to evolve for hundreds of millions of years here uninterrupted like they do on many other worlds that don't flip their poles. Earth has had its poles permanently stopped from flipping. That was not done by the Galactic Alliance. It was done by beings who are the mechanics of the entire creation on all levels, because their consciousness changed. And they were given the impetus and the instruction to stop it. They have the ability, they just never had any motivation to do it before. That's one of the first things that had to be done in order for people here to even attempt to go through a transformation to wake them up. Why wake up a whole mass of people and then wipe them out in a single day when the poles flip over? Makes no sense. The poles of this planet, and it was measurable, were starting to tip a few years back. And they suddenly went back to where they were in 1500s. People on Earth didn't do that. Russia didn't do it. The United States didn't do it. People on Mars didn't do it. It was bigger than that. Did I answer your question?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but just one, Scott, because they try to get out from negative.
You can't try to get out of negative. Negative isn't real. It's artificial. When you feel something negative, you're feeling it subconsciously affect your nervous system. If people have the courage to not be lazy, they start feeling the first sign of being afraid of the future, afraid of health, dying, parents, losing kids, losing husband, jobs, taxation, governments, nuclear war, all this negative stuff that's promulgated out there. Gee, there's going to be a meteorite hit the earth. We're going to all be dead. Let's raise our kids and teach them this so they can think and imagine negative stuff too. That's what people do without realizing it. Let's have an Armageddon so a savior can come and take us to heaven. What? Have an Armageddon, destroy the world so you can be set free and taken to some heaven as irresponsible, spoiled children who will not do anything to correct their own behavior and become masterful and godlike in their own right, which is what any great teacher of the past tried to teach people. People should become like that representative they worship, not just be under someone's feet forever. That doesn't work in eternity at all. The people on earth don't really understand this yet. They will. They're meant to. You know, if religion is really good and faith is good, it should lead to direct experience and knowing. Because then you know and you can be trusted. The purpose of a human being, not the body, is to become a trusted co-creator with the source behind all life. What beings on other worlds call prime creator. You could call it the supreme being, but that's just a tyrant, pretending to be the highest being, making people worship it, giving them nothing in return, really. The source itself, which exists in many dimensional levels above the void known to most, I don't want to use this as an insult, but as an encouragement to most Buddhist monks. There are many dimensions above the void. And they have the discipline and the understanding, and once they get this, they can go there easily and get greater training and understanding. So I bring it up for their benefit, out of respect. There is much greater things for them to explore than they're taught on earth. Once that's out of the bag, it cannot be reversed. When people begin to understand where it is they came from as a being before they started running bodies like this, everything begins to wake up in them. People that are struggling with this negative stuff, if they can catch it as they first feel it, before they let themselves start imagining with it negative things in the future, it's a trap. They can go into the hue, trust that you seek, ask for, to be shown deliberately hidden truth on a grand multidimensional scale, and the much greater knowing of the expansive love within it. Knowing is not faith. Knowing isn't I kind of, sort of, maybe, kind of know, want to know. You know. No doubt, no fear, no hesitation. You know. Once a person knows, they know forever. It can't be taken from them. So that's the main thing. You utilize the hue to shut down subconscious influences before they grab you. Before you're so wrapped up in them, it takes you days for this recording to stop and you come out of it and feel better. You know what I mean, Perry?
Yes.
From your own experience, but this was your experience, not mine. That's what makes you wise. You know, it makes you enlightened. It gives you a direction, a sense of something constructive and positive about your life, far beyond this physical body. You begin to realize that your destiny as a being is to co-create with the source itself. Because the Atma, the spherical form of us, has the same faculties and abilities as the supreme being or the source, prime creator itself, on a smaller scale. Exactly the same. We are actually the same energy, like an individual drop of this pure individualist energy in this huge ocean of it. And we're connected through this telepathic communication network that runs through a field of energy that runs through all the dimensions, above time and space, through the void, through the lower dimensions, out into the worlds, and it connects everything together through this field of energy. It's not nuclear. The dark matter in space is not nuclear. Scientists on Earth begin to understand that. They're going to advance very quickly. And they're close to it. If their consciousness is prepared to get it, beings from other worlds who really know this stuff can bring it on in with them. But the ground has to be fertile. It has to be prepared first. They can't be operating from religious propaganda, government propaganda, or anything else. They have to be, I wouldn't say open-minded, they have to be operating as an Atma to look and see and bring this information in, because the human brain is not the being, and it can't comprehend this stuff. It can't. It didn't grow up training that way. But the being, when it's awake, can bring this information into the human brain and enlighten it. The real you isn't the brain or the body you grew up with here. That's number one. People begin to become aware of that. They advance very quickly. The doorway to recover this is through the protected energy that comes along with utilizing the hue to connect with telepathically the source itself, after millions of years of being unaware of it, very likely. So we go into this journey. I always ask people to sit in a chair or lean back or lay on a bed or whatever. Remember that this is nothing more than what you do every night when you put the body to sleep. And you're putting the body in the trance state called sleep. Why is it a trance state? Because your pineal gland is secreting serotonin, directing the other glands, it makes melatonin. These are things that keep the body running on automatic, heart breathing, lungs working, blood circulating while you're gone. All night. That's why there's nobody home when you're sound asleep, because you're not in the brain. There is a link of this pure energy that nothing negative can get into at all, because it's not matter. And you connect into that when you go out of your body. And depending upon the consciousness you take with you, if you take fear with you, you're going to have frightening experiences in the astral plane or some other planet, people chasing you and all that. There's a way to deal with all that constructively when it happens. And we can get into that. If you take deliberately, before you go to bed at night, very uplifting, purposeful, creative energy to discover hidden truth, like safely show me deliberately hidden truth on a grand multidimensional scale. Why limit it? And the much greater knowing of the expansive love within all of that, then you're putting out an SOS that goes to the source itself and says, I'm ready to journey back to where I came from. That was not matter. I'm ready to start to actually take on awakening, being a co-creator with it. And beings I know hear this. I don't care if they're on ships on other planets, they hear it. It's telepathic. It is not limited by the limits of speed of light at all. Put aside all your fears for the future, just for this journey on this radio show. I don't care what your fear is. Just for now, in your imagination, you're putting it aside in little computer disks on your bed, on the floor around you, setting aside every concept and limiting idea, abusive thing you've thought about yourself, or self-recrimination, or guilt, or fear, or any of those negative things, and you're just putting them aside for now. Imagine someone you love and respect, you're grateful they're in your life, a person, place, or thing. But when you imagine it, it makes you smile inside. It could be a child laughing. For me, it's this little cat, Starlight, because there's an Atma, just like me, running that kitty body, and he isn't even human. And he can go out with me in far journeys into the far country, in the high worlds, and travel and understand things. And he's brilliant. He surprises me all the time. But before we start one of these shows, or I get on a private session with someone or a group session, this little guy tunes into it, comes in, opens the door, comes up here, gets up on the back of this chair, lays down and goes out of his body just like that. He's there before we even get there. If people on Earth understood this about fellow beings that aren't even human, this world would be transformed virtually overnight. I think many beings on Earth suspect it, but they're so habit-ridden and used to what they're doing in abusing life on this planet every day. It's almost like a deeply seated subconscious guilt that they can't confront. Because they need to change that, get off that guilt, and actually be and operate differently than they are. This takes recovering who and what we are that isn't a physical body to do it. Simple as that. I go into these tones and send out the you telepathically. For you, Perry, myself included, it's for my benefit. To the master teachers I know that aren't from this earth, to the wondrous races and beings I meet all the time and know that live beyond this earth, out among the stars in higher dimensions. And I send out this you for you on earth as a physical, running a physical body, and for you running a body on the astral plane. The first time you're hearing it, and you're going to find out there are major divisions in these different dimensional levels that are structured, precise. Some people call it the astral plane. All emotion comes from there. It's a whole major division up from physical universe. There's 144 parallel dimensions of time and space and galaxies and matter in the physical universe. And then there's 144 in the astral. There's a causal, a mental, a etheric. Then there's this huge barrier between the upper worlds and the lower planes. And then there's all these higher realities where no negativity has ever existed. Where God is, so to speak. And people think, why doesn't God change the experiment of evil and help us? Well, here's the kicker. Each one of us as an Atma is part of that God. And we have the same faculties of co-creativity as it does, and we were all involved in creating the experiment of evil in the lower planes together hundreds of billions of years ago. Which means, if this is true, and it is, we're all responsible collectively for changing the way it is, or not. It's a level of responsibility as a being that has an equal measure of freedom that goes with that responsibility. But it must be enlightened, and it must be awake, and it must be aware. I will begin these tones, and what it will do is shut down any negative subconscious stuff that may be going on in you, in the astral, causal, mental, and etheric bodies, because those forms you're running in those planes are also going to be sitting in a contemplation with their imagination, with their physical forms on those planes in the trance state called sleep, and they're going, in a sense, as the Atma, with us on this journey. Now we'll begin these tones now. What this does, because it's designed to do that, it's part of the omnipresent living energy. Some people call it divine spirit. But that's been so abused on this earth, I don't even use those terms. It is a living energy that moves through all creation, supports all life. It isn't an individual Atma or soul. It is a field of living force in which we all move and live and have our being. It is the dark matter in space that fills the so-called black void between stars and galaxies, which isn't even dark at all. Human eyes can only see a small spectrum of light, so it appears dark to them. It's actually a white light with a golden essence to it. The Atma can see it. Human eyes cannot. Scientific instruments can see it. It's colorful and brilliant. Human eyes on Earth are very limited. As the being recovers more of its higher faculties, human eyes can see into wider fields and spectrums. But it's really the Atma that's seeing it clearly and knowing what it's seeing, passing that through the human body. It's easy to be out of the body. Every one of you do it every single night, like experts, without any effort. You put the body to sleep, you start to yawn, you go off, and bye-bye, you're gone, without realizing what it is you're doing. Growing up on this planet, by everyone else that surrounds you, you're convinced that you're a body. You identify with it as who you are, and you go to sleep and go unconscious with it. Well, not really. You still go out, you still have adventures, but there's no training from the time you're grown up in the first formative years, 6 years, where your subconscious is set for this life, that gives you any idea how to bring back what you're doing as an awareness and download it through the pineal gland into that human brain that has none of it, none of this there. This is what we're doing. We go on these journeys so that you can be in the trance state called sleep, listening to this guidance, which isn't just me, it comes from many beings. And it comes through the telepathic communication, through the medium of the omnipresent living energy that supports and sustains all life on all multidimensional levels of the grand creation itself. You will discover this, and you are capable of understanding it, whether you know that or believe that now or not. So you get out of your body every night. The difference is here, you've got something to focus on, which uses telepathy for you to see imaginatively clearly what I'm describing for yourself. And then you grow, you expand, you begin to recover this ability on your own. It begins to reawaken in you. Imagine being above your body, looking down on it, about where the ceiling is. Or if you're outside, 20 feet above your head, whatever. And just to picture yourself looking down, smiling calmly on that body that's got its eyes closed and it's in the trance state called sleep. Now, try to do it so that you don't think of yourself as a physical body with more energy, like a luminous, transparent form hovering above your body. Instead, you are spherical, like a planet or a sun or a moon. Brightly lit. You have a white core in your being. It's made of this omnipresent living energy. It's individualized. Surrounding it are layers of the spectrum of light, as it's known on Earth. It goes from white And then eventually yellow is a yellow layer of these teardrop-shaped lights that contain higher faculties and awareness, memory, beyond the human brain and beyond one life. And it goes into an orange level, and then red, then green, and then blue, and then lavender and violet. There's a golden energy field surrounding it like a halo around a sphere, not the top of someone's head. That is the real you. And that is looking down on this body, kindly smiling upon it. And then you look up and you find that you're hovering in the atmosphere, maybe 1,000 feet in the air where you live, looking down on the countryside or city where you are. You can look right through a ceiling and see yourself sitting in a chair. And when you're looking from up there as a spherical being, you'll notice there are other spheres like you hovering in a circle around a friend of mine. His name is Ambassador Torelli, and he's from the Say-Rays human race. He goes with us on these journeys voluntarily. He is extremely advanced beyond human beings on Earth. Kind, humble, experienced, confident, genuine. When you look down, you can see that you are a sphere of energy hovering in a circle. I'm there, Perry's there. My little cat, Starlight, is an Atma, looks like us. And he's manifesting a little energy form that looks like a physical body of this cat, glowing and hovering in the air so you know who it is. He's quite clever. And he's quite capable. And he doesn't run a human body. Then you look down and see that this sphere of energy looks just like the one hovering in the atmosphere is hovering above your body by the ceiling. Both are you. What you are is not limited by time and space, and it can be in multiple places at one time. Here's the kicker. You're running multiple bodies on different dimensions right now without remembering it. The Atma, you, can do this, does it, whether it's aware of it anymore or not. When you look in this atmosphere above where you live, whether it's day or night, the sky around you will be lit up. It's being lit from the light coming from all of our beings. Nobody on the ground can see it. Radar cannot detect it. What we are is not made of nuclear or physical matter, and it can't be detected by such things. So we're invisible to people on the ground in this way. Then you get this impression, I'm sending it out, Torellian is, and some master teachers, both men and women I know not from Earth, that are joining us of free will, to be telepathically of some kind of an influence in a constructive, uplifting way for your benefit. And they're telling you to visualize being above planet Earth in space, like a spaceship, like the space shuttle or a satellite, except you're not a physical machine. You're an energy sphere that can hover in space. You don't feel heat or cold. You don't have to breathe oxygen. Radiation will not bother you. And it's like you're breathing in the universe you see around you. You see, in all of that supposed black void between the Earth and the moon, you can see the Earth with its polar ice caps and oceans. You can see the moon with all the craters on it coming around the planet. It does not spin on its axis. It always shows us the same face. That is not normal either. Very rare for a moon or any planet not to spin on its axis. So something was done to that moon to cause it to stop to spin on its axis. When a planet doesn't do that, it doesn't have enough gravitational pull to hold an atmosphere. You can see around you there's a black area of space that you've seen in photographs from the Hubble telescope or the shuttle or satellites showing you pictures of Earth, or astronauts that took cameras with them and showed everybody what they were seeing, which they really did. 50 years ago or more now. When you look at this black void now as the Atma, the spherical being, it doesn't appear black at all. It appears like a white field of energy with a golden essence to it. And it's everywhere between us as beings. It's between the earth and the moon and the sun, stars, and whole galaxies. All that black void is full of living energy, brightly lit. And you can hear a sound, not with your physical ears, more vivid than your physical ears, humming from that energy field all around you. And it's a warm, heart-opening, comfortable feeling. And it's like, as you're beginning to feel this white energy move through the white core of your own being, through it without resistance, you're in communication with this field of energy. And you can talk to it, you can send questions, you can send curiosity, the ability to remember into it, and it goes right to the source behind all life, where you came from, and whatever that source is begins to recognize you for the first time. And you begin to make your journey back to where you came from while you're living a life on earth. It wakes up in you. I am hovering next to Terrellian in the center of a circle. On the other side is a master teacher. And you can see Atma hovering there. And out in front of him, you'll see a physical body made of energy, looks physical, floating in space. He has a maroon robe, a short, swarthy cropped beard, and black hair, and he's holding a crystal staff in his right hand. It's made of quartz, 6 feet tall, and the top is a cross with a top oval circle with a hole in it. So in Egypt, it was a symbol for eternity, eternal life, and other meanings. But that symbol did not originate on Earth. And it's a device that he uses, and it carries it so people will recognize who he is. Over to the right is a woman standing there. She appears to be maybe 40, beautifully elegant, dressed in Indian robe. She appears to be from India on Earth. She is not. And off to her right is a woman with long, honey blonde hair, about 36. She has a physical body still stationed on Earth in a parallel dimension that's over 100,000 years old. And these are master teachers, kind, who have had their hands tied for ages in their attempts to get other Atmas like themselves free because of the way the lower universes were run until recently. I use an example of something simple that's foreign to most people, but it has to do with the Mayan calendar. Mayans are simple tribal people. They have shamans that grow up learning how to read their own calendar, that archaeologists that found them at the turn of the century and before could not understand. They tried to interpret what they were telling them, these shamans, into the religious teachings. It does not fit there, not on Earth. The end of the Mayan calendar, December 2012, when it ended, it started a new one. To the shamans who know how to read their calendar, it simply means this: the end of evil is an experiment on Earth. They're simple people. They don't know what form it will take, but they know it's true, without question. When people misinterpreted them, they stopped having association with outside people for a very long time. There are other native tribal peoples around the planet who also understand this. And they're looked at as primitive by arrogant human beings, fellow beings, so they're not listened to. Many of the tribes on Earth know they were brought here from the stars by extraterrestrial brethren and people, sometimes as slaves, sometimes as part of some benevolent venture into this planet under treaty. Earth has been like a Switzerland, put that way at the end of a great war 500,000 years ago. So no one race has been able to dominate it, good or bad, from the stars, and it's policed. Or we'd all be dead, or eaten, or dominated, or tortured. by people from other worlds. And we would have done that if they'd been allowed to get away with it. They were not allowed to get away with it. There are no more abductions by little grays taking place on planet Earth and haven't been for several decades. People don't yet know this. Tyrants who were on underground bases here have been removed and sent away. This gives the opportunity for people on Earth to disclose and come clean when they know how to do it in a non-destructive way that'll be good for all life here, including theirs. You are hovering in space, looking at Earth with fellow beings. Some master teachers, and now if you look, there's a group, a single circle of over 100 men and women, spherical forms. They have a body form manifesting out in front of them that looks like what they're like on their planets. And they are from different dimensions and different worlds in our galaxy. And they are teachers in their own right. And they've been invited to go on this journey with us because as they experience what they understand is pretty spectacular. How people on Earth with no memory of who they are, no awareness of their higher faculties, could go out of their bodies just with the guidance of one being and begin to do what we're doing. They don't know how we're doing it. And they're studying it because it's a phenomenon. And it's beneficial for them to go on this journey. They're much more advanced than we are. But they're going to report back to their own people telepathically and share this experience. It's like the 100th monkey. It begins to spread all over creation in the physical worlds of the Milky Way. That's the best way I have of sharing this with you. It means people on Earth are important. The potential of what will change when they are woken up to who they really are is very great, because they don't remember what they once were in creation. And we're all in this together. There are countless billions, if not trillions, of beings on many levels now working in this new energy ray, this new intelligence that's woven and recently been created and funneled through this omnipresent living force in a new way that's never existed before. Who are we to tell the source behind all life it cannot change its mind or do something different? Something has changed in the upper worlds, the source behind all life, recently that never occurred before. It means the destiny of this planet, and in fact the entire universe, has changed. The prophesied past our destructive Armageddon in this world is no longer the future of this planet. When people become aware that this has changed significantly in some unusual way, they'll be able to co-create having this happen much more swiftly. You can see the Earth with its polar ice caps, the beautiful oceans, and like astronauts have said, you look at the Earth from space, you don't see cities. You don't see divisions between countries. You can't even see city structures from an orbit where they are. And all you see is one planet. You can't even see people. And from there, it dawns on them quite clearly that we are one world. And that the people on Earth, as ignorant and as mixed up as they are, fighting each other, squabbling over bits of materialistic nonsense, is one world and always will be. When the people on that planet begin to understand this and get the perspective that even a few astronauts that have looking back on this jewel, this beautiful blue-green marble jewel of a world, changed them forever. They're not politicians. They don't come back from space and change the world. And they all tried to share this with people on Earth. But of course, the people on Earth didn't have the experience. So it fell kind of on deaf ears in a way. You're in space hovering there as a being, out of your body. It's perfectly safe. It's in the trance state called sleep. You put it there every night. And we're about to go on a little journey, maybe to a little bit higher level. To do that, let's first go to a parallel dimension. It's the third plane up third parallel dimension up from the world you're familiar with, and the molecules that make up that entire reality vibrate at a faster time rate. It is an Earth that exists in the same place where Earth is now that you're seeing. But when you suddenly look on the Earth and that barren moon, it changes before your eyes. You feel a little pulse of white light in the core of your being. And now Torellian and us are circling around him, and you can see this planet, Earth, is ocean covered with no polar ice caps. There is a continent extending from the left hemisphere to the right. It goes up high about a third towards the North Pole and comes down about a third towards the South Pole and comes back up. And on the bottom of it is this crescent-shaped emerald green beach, about a third of the way up to the southern pole. And you can see green emerald sand, even from space, glowing there. When you look over in space and see the moon, in the same place the moon was, it has an oxygen atmosphere and clouds and rivers and mountains and lakes, 5 dome cities on the front. It's turning on its axis like the Earth and moving around the Earth. And as it turns, you can see the more mountainous backside, and you can see a dome city on the backside. The backside they call the dark side of the moon is not dark all the time. It passes in front of the Earth and goes in front of the sun, and it's lit up till it gets on the other side of the Earth, and it's dark. And the one side we see is light for a time. You're going to see Torellian begin to move, and all of us together as a focal point to keep us focused, that's all, down to this planet until we pass into the atmosphere. And you can tell as you're moving through this atmosphere as an Atma, there are no pollutants whatsoever in the atmosphere of this planet. You can smell the air and feel it and breathe it without lungs passing through you. It's clean and vibrant, and has a very high frequency. The water on the oceans of this mostly water-covered world, well, it's got a big continent on one side, and it's 1/2 that side right on the other side, still referred to as Atla or Atlantis. The front side is still Lemuria or Mu, but it isn't the one that was destroyed when the poles flipped in the planet you're familiar with. That's in a bit lower down parallel dimension of creation. This one, that never occurred. There's never been any negative nature or negative beings operating here. It's been protected for a very long period of time. You're going to find that we slow and hover as a group of beings out in a blue-green ocean looking at a tropical paradise. It's kind of tropical, I know. It's a third of the way toward the southern pole, but remember, this planet has no polar ice caps. The weather here is very well mastered, let's put it that way. And you can see a crescent-shaped emerald green beach and it's glowing with a green light about a foot above the sand, and you're drawn to it. It feels good. You can see the jungle trees are very tall, and there's big giant ferns, prehistoric looking ferns in between the trees. And there's a little brown path 3 feet wide that leads straight as an arrow back into the jungle, into the distance. You can see way back there, there's some kind of crystal statue standing on a blue pedestal in a white marble circular floor. And you can just make out lavender grass about 4 feet high. Then you're going to feel a body that looks like you come out of that central white core of your being and hover in front of you, hovering in the air with bare feet. You're not naked, it's not embarrassing. Just your bare feet are sticking below whatever you're wearing. And then you feel your feet sink into the emerald green sand, 3 or 4 inches in, and it feels soothing and cool. And then a warm energy comes up your legs. It's green, moves up your torso and up your head, and you look up smiling. And you, this physical energy form, looks up and smiles at the Atma that is you hovering above it. The green energy goes into that white core, and is sent out to the green layer of these levels that surround you as a being. There's some of these teardrop shapes in that layer that are green, that are turned on. Several more light up. These are higher faculties, knowing and understanding, recall and remembering. And then your feet vanish, and you are an Atma hovering above the sand. And Terrellian moves this group, and I am with him, by him. We're moving this group over the top of the jungle, following this brown moss-covered path. And we come to stop about a mile inside this straight path, and then you see a white marble floor, several hundred feet across. A blue pedestal with a woman standing on it, 10 feet tall, made of pure, polished quartz. There's no impurities in this quartz. It was created out of thin air, so to speak, by beings who know how to do this. And she has big crystal angel wings behind her like an angel, but she is not of any angelic order. Those wings represent the ability of the Atma. When you look up, you can see this beautiful, sparkling Atma hovering above this statue. The statue, when you look at it through the surface of this polished quartz, you can see the image of a woman smiling at you inside it. She has long silver hair, looks like silver metal. But if you touch it, you can imagine touching it from the Atma, and it feels soft. She has violet eyes. Quite beautiful. Beautiful features, pointed ears like an elf. A little longer neck and fingers and legs than the people on Earth because she's 10 feet tall. She's human, but she's not from Earth. She's not from this parallel dimension Earth. She's from a planet 180 degrees on the other side of the Milky Way galaxy, of a race called Xeontronomus, from a planet called Xeontronomon 1. This form you're seeing inside the statue, when you look up at her forehead, you see a gold band around it with a teardrop-shaped, faceted emerald green crystal, like a big jewel. And you can see right through it into a green atmosphere, like a big coliseum size of green atmosphere, and you can see this woman hovering in midair, standing there with an elegant gown on, in bare feet. And she's holding up her hands to the side, and so is the statue. And they're glowing with a green light. And when you look from those hands, down this moss-covered path, it's brown, at the beach, you see this emerald green beach glowing about a foot above the sand. And this is what she's doing as a gift to this world, this planet Earth. This green energy has to do with recall and remembering what you are as an Atma. When you look at this crystal, you find yourself suddenly transported into an inner domain inside this crystal device. And you're hovering in a circle as Atmas around this woman. She's smiling kindly, and she places her hand over here and just nods. The physical form you're seeing is a representation in this mist of the physical form she has on that planet. Then you see a man, a little taller, hover beside her, the long silver hair and violet eyes. That's her mate. And they are telling you that their forms you're seeing there on that planet are over 3.5 million years old, unaged. That is one form of immortalization of the genetic structure of a human body, through understanding the higher science of the genomes that make up the switches on DNA. Their world is peaceful, 4 times bigger than Earth. You can see an image of it in this green mist, floating there in space, with 3 moons around it, hovering around it at different distances that are the size of Earth, with water and land, dome cities. And then you can see that these planets are circling a trinar sun system. Big blue giant, and around that is a yellow star like our sun, and then a red dwarf around that, and they're both circling around this bigger star. It's a trinary system. when you find yourself suddenly walking down a river ravine in a wide valley, 15 miles across, and there's these beautiful exotic trees that look like giant weeping willows, and we've seen them in other realities, but they come from here, and they're also in the higher worlds. They have blue and green spoon-shaped leaves, come all the way to the ground, and they have their self-luminous quality. Off in the distance, you can see a huge dome between two red mesa peaks, and that dome has 3 pyramids inside it, golden-sided with quartz caps. When you look up in the daytime from their world, you can see one of those moons. It looks like Earth, land all over it, no polar ice caps, and dome cities all around it. And you can see it in broad daylight. It's close enough to this planet. While you're walking down a kind of a violet path next to this emerald green glowing river, you see a man and a woman approach you on foot in simple bare feet. They're taller than you. These are the physical forms of this Zeontranamus couple. They are the leaders of a world system numbering in the hundreds and hundreds of millions of planets, a little larger than the Galactic Alliance, which takes up the dominant nature of the other half of the Milky Way galaxy. And these two races, these two benevolent groups, have recently joined cooperatively. They're all moving in one new direction. Earth is going to be swept up in that, fortunately. And they walk up to you, put their hand over their chest, and they tell you telepathically that their science and that of the Oceanians is one of the highest crystalline-based science in existence. These are humans. They get their genomes for their DNA from the Say rays. That's Turellian, the ambassador, hovering above them, even now. And then you see an 18-foot tall body manifest in front of it. This is a physical form of what he used to look like. Long blonde hair and beautiful big blue eyes, slightly larger than a human, pointed ears. In a gown, he looks like a Greek god. They immortalized their physical bodies over 1 billion years ago, out in the galaxies. They aren't from Milky Way. They're not from Andromeda. And they are human. They have more strands in their DNA than we do. But we get our structure for these higher genetic forms from them originally. They developed these so that Atma could run them, and under the proper conditions, be able to run higher faculties of the Atma through them, like enlightened beings. When the Say-Rays immortalized their bodies, they didn't fix the genome so the bodies stay unaged for millions of years. They withdrew, dematerialized those bodies, and stored them in one of the teardrops in the Atma that they are. They draw from the omnipresent field of energy, and whenever they need a body, wherever they are, they just manifest it instantly. Takes the same shape it was in before he did this with him and his people a long time ago. This is a little venture to another benevolent, much more highly evolved world in our Milky Way galaxy, from a world, a planet Earth, in a third higher parallel dimension, where there is no negativity. We're going back there now. You're going to find yourself hovering again in the green atmosphere in front of this woman. Then you're going to find yourself outside this statue of this crystal quartz woman. You can see her standing inside it. It's an interdimensional portal. You can see her hands up with the green glow around them. You can see the glow on the beach. You put your feet in it. You can see Turellian hovering above her. You can see her hovering above the statue. You can see me hovering there. And Ramu. And these two women teachers. And Master Opelum, who is an advanced teacher of the Oceanian race. They are on the other side of the Milky Way galaxy, on a planet. Third dimension up, same one where this planet is, where this statue is. And they have a mostly water-covered world. They've learned to breathe on land or underwater. They have a few land masses along the equator that are large islands, but no big continents. And you can see yourself hovering above this statue and this entire white marble circular floor and this 4-foot-high lavender grass surrounding it, and a sleepy river winding its way through a riverbank off to the west with these tall weeping willow type trees lining the embankment. And if you look on the other side of this white marble floor, the brown moss-covered path continues and winds up a mountainside. And higher up elevation in a flat plateau is a dome city, huge clear dome covering 3 gold pyramids with quartz caps. And you can see a small mountain range on the back side of the interior of this dome. And it's sitting at the base of this plateau of this tall single mountain, glacier covered. And up on the right, 2/3 of the way up that dome, of that mountain rather, is a cavern opening. And this beautiful blue-green water, luminous, is pouring thousands of feet out of it and dropping to the floor and moving through blue-green forest trees that surround that dome. Lower down, it becomes that river that heads out to the coast. Above that opening is a semi-spherical cutout tunnel leading straight back inside that mountain with little semi-spherical lights along the top. That tunnel is an interdimensional link from this reality in the 3rd parallel dimension of the physical universe where this Earth is, to the interior of Mount Shasta in Northern California, where there is an extraterrestrial benevolent base established in 1908. When you travel down that tunnel, your molecular time rate is gradually increased until you come out of that opening and find yourself hovering above this dome city, looking out in the distance at this blue-green ocean, the emerald green beach, this path and the statue and the whole thing. When you look up in the daytime from here, you can see the moon, and it has life on it, and oxygen is turning on its axis. This is going to be a prototype for how the Earth will change, and the moon. For the moon to change, it must be turning on its axis once again. So you have a little visit here, and then you find yourself suddenly above that planet, this other Earth, looking down on it and the moon full of life. And you can see the white field of energy with the blue-green, of the golden essence through it. Everywhere you look, between the planet, the moon, between each of us, hovering in a circle around Turelian, between the sun, the stars in space, and countless billions, which are still bright even in this white field of energy. And then you can look out past the Milky Way galaxy and see Andromeda from where you're hovering as an Atma. And you can see other galaxies, and this white energy field connects them all together. They're literally floating in this type of energy, which is not nuclear. It is not atomic in nature. It's not made of electrons and protons and neutarks and quarks and semiquavers and whatever else they've come up with on Earth, because it doesn't operate by the laws of physics as people understand it. But it supports everything. It is a field of energy that is neither positive nor negative. It is not part of, or never was part of, any negative nature. And then you look at the Earth and you see that it changes. It's now the Earth you're familiar with. A little bit lower vibration, and you can see the polar ice caps, the oceans. You can see the barren moon with the craters all over it, moving around the Earth. You can see our sun. And then you find yourself with all of us in Turelian, hovering above 1,000 feet above where you live. And then you can see yourself as a spherical being, as the Atma, the real you, hovering above your body in the trance state called sleep, and you're smiling kindly down on it. And you pass this green energy and this white light with a golden essence down into the top of your head, into the pineal gland in the center of the brain, and it's gently moved out through your brain, lighting up brain cells and moving out through your body, and it's flowing through you unhindered for your benefit and on its way to benefit others. When you're ready, open your eyes.
Thank you so much, Scott, for taking us on journeys like this.
There'll be more. And we do have done this similar thing, but there's always a little different twist, a different way of going about it. Get a different perspective from a different dimension, from a different way. So people begin to think as cosmic citizens, and they begin to see and imagine as other worlds and other realities. While they're living their life on Earth, they become free of the limits of what they grew up with in this brain and this body on Earth that knows nothing about this. And they begin to bring their awareness and their ability to know this to the physical consciousness. That's how this works. So we'll go further. And next time, you'll remind me, we'll go up into the higher worlds for the radio show people. We'll go above the void. Because it's very important for people to get established there. Because there, they can create change with others that will change the lower dimensions, even this backward planet Earth. We can do it from the brain and body we grew up with on Earth. But we can do it collectively from there. And that's where the change is taking place. It's bringing change here now. So I want to leave everybody with that.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
What you want to say?
Yes. Scott, I just want to leave this for the audience. Not only the IQ goes up after each journey. The person who has problem with health or in daily life, can raise their vibration up and can listen the problem too.
Can begin to change them, but not from the Earth. They need to get out of the body and get above a little bit to do that.
Yeah.
Here, I wanted to just show people real quick, because I think it's important. If people understood what I had to go through on this life to recover what was done to me, to write these books and then publish them a number of times to get the techniques in the back of here, or to write this book. There are 3 of these, and this is the first published one out of 3 completed journeys. This is the Emerald Doorway. The second book is Guardians of the Ancient One. The third one's Journey to the Center of the Universe, and I don't mean the physical center. So those will be coming out later. This book has techniques in the back, a very special technique section involving the hue that goes through what we're doing tonight. And if people use those techniques, a way I recommend to do it is as you begin to recover who you are. You'll have dreams or you'll have these profound things happen. And you'll wonder more about them. You'll know you're on the right track. And you go to look up the chapter titles, which are very intriguing. Taken Beyond Earth, Chapter 1. With Eyes Wide Open, Chapter 2. Guests from Way Out of Town, Off Planet, Chapter 3. The Mysterious Mr. Crystal, who's human, who meets with Mark Sandfield in this book, and he's not from Earth. Arriving Aboard the Mothership, The Grand Deception. Arriving Aboard the Mothership, The Grand Deception. What is that? Parting the Subconscious Veil. And chapters like that. Then you take your experience, your dream, whatever you're beginning to recover. Find the chapter when you read this book that best represents or associates with what you saw in that experience. Then you use the technique for that chapter and work with it for a period of nights. And then you'll have more enlightening experiences and recover a great deal more. So that's the Savior's Agenda. You can get on Amazon or Barnes & Noble, whatever. I do sell these because I have no other way to get these in people's hands than through trusted online retailers, as monstrous as they are. Otherwise, nobody would get them. As I don't charge money for or have monetary systems involved in these radio shows from my part. And the only thing that's sold out there are these books. When you go to my websites, there's nothing for sale at them. There are links provided for ebooks and paperback for both these books at all Barnes & Noble and Amazon, iTunes, whatever. So people don't have to hunt for the right page and they can go right to it if they want to get it. There's nothing sold at these sites. Paralleltime.com, PARALLELTIME, is the primary website. There are 3 others. And when I send this to you, Perry, I'll list them there. So you can put them up on your YouTube channel and people can click on them and discover a great deal more if they have the courage to step beyond what they were trained on Earth and begin to recover who they are. So I'll leave that with everyone.
Scott, hold on, please. I just want to say these two books must read in this lifetime, for someone who want to find who they really are and to awakening path, you cannot miss these two books. So much information there and so many experiences that you will have to find it by yourself,
They're
Scott.
written in such a way, thank you, Perry, they're written in such a way to be interdimensional visual portals for people to gaze. Their own imagination gets engaged. They begin to see and understand things they were made to forget before they were born here. Galactic history, Earth and solar system history, and the history of the multidimensional creation begins to become revealed as hidden truth. And as people discover and have their own experiences with it, which is the way they're designed in my work, like these guided sessions, then they begin to require knowing this truth for themselves. And it's not mine. It doesn't have to come from me. They know it within their own being. I'll leave them with that and wish you always the very best, Perry. And all of you who listen to these shows, I wish you pleasant dreams, both on Earth and at night when you're out of your bodies.
Thank you, Scott. See you next time. Bye.
Bye.